Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's your host Brian, and welcome to my Q&A session, episode number 1. I did mean to release this last week, but unfortunately, the multi-drummer collaboration I did with Glory Days, and thank you to all the drummers who had thankfully pointed it out to me, especially Chris, Vader, Joaquin. Thank you guys for pointing it out and everything, and I do apologize for version 1. Ash, I also want to thank you as well, because you did give me some great tips on how to edit, make sure it all sounded great and everything too. So special thanks there. I decided to release version 2 instead. So here we are at episode 1. I do got some questions right here from all you guys because you did leave some good ones down in the comments when I did my channel update video a couple weeks back. Before I do jump into that, just a couple quick updates. I got some podcast episodes I'd like to release next week. Ryan Thompson, a fellow Scot and good friend of Kieran Wallace. I got his underway right now. I'm going to schedule it for Monday. And Earl Bennett, our favorite guy in the drumming community and everything. I'm going to release that next Friday too. So stay tuned for those ones. I also, because I had so much fun, well, we're going to just say it was a little bit hectic just trying to get through Glory Days and everything. But I did love doing the drummer collaborations, the multi-drummer collaborations. So I do want to do another one with you guys. And I got one currently, an idea right now. Now I just need to find people who want to do it. So, Vertical Horizon, the song is We Are. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, message me through social media. I'll give you more of the details then so we can make sure this time we will get it right, as well as terms of editing too. So, this time we don't have to worry about getting screwed up like the last time. So, as promised, we'll jump into the next one here. I'm going to talk about the trip I took out west to Arizona, Utah, and a little bit of Nevada, mainly strictly Vegas. And I had to start with the first one because day 1, here's how it was supposed to go. Supposed to fly to Detroit, go to Phoenix, have a nice dinner at this nice 4 Seasons hotel resort, get to know some of the members who are going to be part of our trip, have a nice day, jump into the next day, and go off to Grand Canyon, stuff like that. So the morning starts off right. We breeze through, there's no traffic at all. We get through security, we get right to our terminal in literally about 2 hours. Just left to spare and everything too. So everything's going right. It starts to rain, of all things. And our plane also happens to be delayed because of a little technical difficulties and stuff like that. And it also flies around the storm. This plane is also going to take us to Detroit, where we'll get our connecting flight that will take us to Phoenix. So needless to say, we take off a little later than we probably should have. Get to Detroit in about 45 minutes. Realize that we only have like maybe a couple minutes. That was going to be a funny part to kind of talk about in a little bit here, but our thought process is if we run to the next terminal where our connecting flight will be, they'll probably hold the plane and we'll get on. No problem. Hopefully everything goes hunky-dory and everything. And then we'll be in Phoenix before you know it. Little did we realize that happened to drop us off at Terminal B5. And our connecting flight's all the way at the end of Concourse A72. So we come out of there, and I run. I'm like sprinting and everything, carrying my camera bag and a duffel bag, sprinting down the escalator, through this big-ass tunnel and everything, up a steep set of escalators. My mom's waving behind me, going like this whenever I'm looking behind, making sure I'm not getting too far ahead, but she's just waving me on. I am literally sprinting down. I'm only like maybe halfway through Concourse A, and needless to say, we didn't get to the flight in time. And to make matters even worse, we ended up realizing that we had already been switched to our next flight, which was going to be at 9 p.m. This whole thing happened at 1. So you can probably imagine how ticked off we were that we had to wait practically 8 to 9 hours just to get our next flight to go out to Phoenix. So, needless to say, as I sit around there, I practically walked that whole Concourse A. It's like, I don't even know how long to say it, but it was pretty long too. So it was a good walk and everything too. Had good eat at Max and Irma's, even had dinner at Popeyes and stuff like that till we finally get on our plane and go to Phoenix and everything. We get into Phoenix about 10:30 their time, which would be about 2 a.m. on the East Coast. So needless to say, we were pretty tired when we finally get to our Four Seasons hotel and room and everything. I just crashed on the bed. So, moral of the story, leave a day early for these kind of trips and everything too. Because, trust me, bad things like this could happen. I'm just going to tell you guys, spare yourself the stress and trouble. Just go a day early, regardless of where you're going. So, lesson learned right there. So, that was fun. And so, let's jump right into the questions right here. Let's see. First one is from Brian Drums. Brian, you've been a big supporter so far throughout my YouTube career and everything too. You've always commented on all my videos. We got to do a drum collaboration. I definitely got to get you on my podcast one way or the other. Brian's question was actually broken up into 3 parts. So, how did you learn to play? Self-taught? Any bands in high school? Can you read? To kind of answer, put the 1 and 2 together, I am self-taught. I've actually never had a drum teacher or anything like that at all. I was actually, and actually this ties into my story with Rock Band. And I mentioned this in my podcast episodes when I've allowed other people to ask me questions about anything. This is why I'm actually doing a Q&A instead of like doing it in my podcast and stuff like that. And Rock Band was actually how everything got started. So at first to start off, you start playing the easy, medium, hard, expert level to eventually get good there. It's funny whenever I tell this story because it's like one of those things like they say, oh, video games are bad for you and stuff like that too. And then you learn that, hey, I learned how to play drums as well as like learning how to keep time and stuff like that, actually doing Rock Band. So it's like, see, video games were good for something. That maybe not the best thing to say, but you get the idea. But it started off with Rock Band, and throughout the years, pretty much all throughout my high school time, even a little bit through college too, I had actually played on the drums on that, kind of learning most of the songs. I was never able to do much of the harder kind of songs when you start getting like near the bottom of the list and stuff like that. And my parents learned that this wasn't like just some fad that was just going to go away after a certain period of time. They said like, hey, do you want your own drum set? And fortunately, they were able to find the electric sets. It's not the current set. It wasn't the current set I had now back then. That actually came a couple of years later. But they were able to find an electric set because they knew that acoustic sets were not going to roll just living down here in the basement too, because sometimes, as I said, the sound travels real easily through these walls and stuff like that. Any bands in high school? I've actually did orchestra, and I'll actually leave a link in the description below for the video about how Rock Band actually got me into it, but I also discussed in that video how I got into strings and some of the songs I played and stuff like that. So that wouldn't really qualify as a band. That's obviously a school setup orchestra, so to speak. And I never actually played in any bands. I actually came close to actually playing in a cover band once, and that was actually about a year ago. Just hung out with these guys for a little bit. I only did like 2 sessions and stuff like that. We're doing like 90s alternative work, like Smashing Pumpkins, Stone Temple Pilots, Green Day, groups like that. It was fun for a little bit, and I kind of wish I got the experience to try it out, but they moved on with a different drummer there, so not really any bands in high school, kind of outside of it, and then just that little stint, and that was about it. Can you read? Believe it or not, I can actually read the sheet music, and obviously it takes about maybe a little bit to read it first, because I got to process like how everything goes. And believe it or not, I credit Ash Wells again with this, because the first time I actually read sheet music was actually my first collaboration, which was with drums by Ash Wells. And he had sent me the sheet music, and we were doing Beastie Boys at that time. The Beastie Boys, Sabotage. So that was actually the first time I read sheet music for drums. I was able to get it. I don't know about the more complex stuff. If they got like Neil Peart kind of sheet music too, boy, that must be crazy. That I don't even want to know what that's probably like and everything too, but I can read, and just got to give me just a little bit of time just to process everything too. So thank you for your question there, Brian. We'll stay in touch. Next question is from Rick Griffin. Rick, me and him actually did a collaboration recently for the All-American Rejects. And Rick, it really means a lot how we did that collaboration together, bud. I look forward to doing one in the future. I also interviewed Rick too. You can also check him out in my channel and everything. Real nice guy and everything, real down to earth. He does some great work too. So, Rick's question is, what is your favorite drum cover out of all you have done, and why is it your favorite? This one I actually really had to kind of dig a little bit because I've actually done a good number of drum covers, and if some of you know, I do more of the heavy metal to death metal kind of songs at times, being like Bolt Thrower, a couple from Napalm Death. Those are mainly the main ones, and then some of the rock ones in between. I know did some of the collabs with Ash, Rock Invader, obviously with Rick too, and everyone else. But in terms of drum cover, I had to say my most favorite one was Napalm Death, and I did Unfit Earth. And the reason why I say that's my favorite out of all the ones I've done, that was actually the first time I did 1 foot blast beats. So for people who tend to not know, and I can't really show it too well, but mainly when you are doing blast beats, you're kind of alternating between your left and right hand. So since I'm right-handed, most of the time it's you're hitting the ride or the hi-hat, one of your cymbals crashes or whatever. You're doing that, and then your left hand, in this case, is hitting the snare and stuff like that. So you're alternating really fast. There's 2 foot blasts where you're playing like both your feet together, or you could do it as 1 foot, which is probably like the real fast, like stuff like that, and then you just like you speed it up a little bit, and it goes a little bit faster and stuff like that. And I kind of recently like backed away from it too, because I think when you do it like too many times, since you're working so much harder on one side of the brain, it causes you to, I think, tend to like make mistakes and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of moved away from it. But at the time, it was really an endeavor. That was the first time I actually did something like that. And it's actually been my most watched video so far. So I was pretty happy with how it turned out. Why is it your favorite? I think it was because it was just a challenging song. And for those who do know about Napalm Death, they're that big UK metal band. They're one of the more biggest selling death metal bands in all time. And their music's always been like real challenging too. So it was definitely for the challenge, outside of the sweat too, because I did exercise a good bit, to be honest. I just have to say for the challenge, to be honest. And when I was digging it too, there's like, the aggressiveness and everything. It just got me into it too. So I hope that answered your question there, Rick. So there you go. Next question is from Alice. Alice, I actually did interview her a couple weeks back for my podcast, All Music Matters, and that had a real good discussion. I got to get cracking on hers. It'll be sometime in November when I release it. So, Alice's question. What's your favorite song of the year so far? Got any recommendations? This one, I was kind of a little torn at first because I thought it was tying into like what Rick was asking earlier. But in terms of like song, I feel like I had to say Pull Me Under, and that was actually the collaboration I did with Stamatis, but I also did my own solo version of that song too. And I feel like I'm saying mostly drum covers, to be honest, because that's like what we're obviously thinking when we're rolling into it too. So Pull Me Under was a really good one too, because, and maybe not as aggressive or like as hard as Napalm Death's, but it was still a challenging song because there's time changes and stuff like that too. But there's also like rhythms and stuff like that just like real catchy and stuff like that. So I have to admit, it was definitely one of my more challenging songs, and I was real happy to do it with Stamatis as well as on my own. And in terms of recommendations, I think any of the grunge, you can't go wrong with those. I know you did one with Nirvana. Soundgarden could be another one. I know Soundgarden's really a challenging kind of group. I don't know, the drums are pretty crazy about that. But you are more than welcome to try it out. I hope that answers your question there, Alice. Let me know otherwise. So my next one is Stamatis Kikes. Now, I have to say kind of touche with Stamatis here because I've always been leaving him comments and stuff like that. And I've always left him like questions, and they're kind of like real short and sweet and stuff like that. But to kind of call it fair, he kind of gave me his own question. And during my channel update video, I was kind of talking about doing live streams and stuff like that. And Stamatis' question happened to delve into that. So what setup will you use to get that done? So, reach over. This is part of it. This happens to be a long cord because my basement kind of makes a little bit of an L shape. So my drum set is over in there. This end plugs into my GoPro, which I'm using right now to record this. And I use OBS and everything else to kind of make sure the video comes through it, and that does all the recording and everything else. I will say if you are using GoPros, you have to update it a couple times. I'll have to kind of dig into it, but if you guys do have any questions about I guess, updates on how to do it with the GoPro and stuff like that, let me know in the comments. I can help you out if you need to. But that's mainly it. You plug in that cord into the GoPro. Mine's GoPro Hero 8. Do it through OBS, make sure it records everything, get all the settings and everything set up. Then you just roll with it from there. Mainly I'm using my audio interface, which is right below me right here. And I plug in my electric drum set into one of the inputs. Make sure everything's set up in the settings and everything. It does take a little bit of time, but make sure you're able to get the volume and everything coming through it and everything. So after that, just plug in the headphones, head on over, make sure the volume comes through, sounds good and everything. If you do need to do test runs, I'm sure there's an unlisted way. I hope I'm not wrong, but hopefully you're able to do it as an unlisted video or stuff like that, or even like do test runs and stuff like that. So that'd be the suggestions. And I think Stamatis, I think you were even saying how you were also using a capture card and stuff like that. You could use it. I'm not very much of an expert on those. I was kind of hoping to just use my GoPro and stuff like that because I'm just using one film angle. You could use somebody else if they want to like house the computer, because I know that was also mentioned in your comment. Go ahead. I mean, that's just how you're going to roll. For me, this is the one I'm going to roll with, and hopefully in my future projects and live streams, it will be all good going forward. So here's hoping. I will also mention that Stamatis and me have done a couple collaborations, and in his Q&A videos, he has brought it up a couple times, as well as even the kind comments and words that he's mentioned about me. So Stamatis, this much we call it even, but you got to give me at least 4 more questions in order for us to call it even, but I'm probably going to jump ahead on your next one, that's for sure. So thank you, Stamatis. I hope that answers your question, though. And the last question is from my good friend, Drums by Ash Wells. I have done his multi-drummer collaborations a couple times. He recently released the Bon Jovi Living on a Prayer. I have to admit, it all turned out pretty well. And Ash, he gave me some good advice to help me with the Glory Days multi-drummer collaboration. And I have to say, it turned out magnificent and stuff like that. So, Ash, thank you so much for the help right there. I hope we can do another collab between you and me in the future. For now, keep on rocking there, buddy. But Ash's question is, what's the top song you wish you could play drums that is beyond your current capabilities? Ash, to be totally honest, if you know me with the heavy and death metal kind of music, that stuff tends to get pretty tough. Even when you get to more of the extremes, there's the extreme metals and stuff like that, but there's even technical death metal, even symphonic, which tends to really use a lot of blast beats and stuff like that. To just name one, to be honest, I think that would be like a cardinal sin, to be honest. But I would have to say Flesh God Apocalypse, The Violation. I recommend you guys go check that out. I probably know you guys aren't probably much into death metal, to be honest. But there are like other songs that I really wish I could play, because I air drum to those songs a good bit. I also do it for that one at least, but I also do one to Nile, The Blessed Dead, Misery Index, The Calling. It gets really tough. There's really a whole bunch, but I know those are top 3 that I've like air drum to, and they are beyond tough. They are beyond my capabilities. It's just one of those things that if I'm going to try it behind drums, I think like, yeah, right. I'm just going to listen to it and just do it with my hands and just hope I'm doing it right. So that would be the top 3. I know 3, but regardless, Flesh God Apocalypse, The Violation, that's the one I wish I could play. And that brings us to the end of all the questions right now. There were others in the comments in that video, but I'm going to leave those for next week's. Kind of talk about it a little bit right there. I want to thank you guys so much for watching and everything. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the video if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of all this. And if you got any other questions, make sure you leave them down below as well. Make sure you also hit that bell notification as well so you can see more content like this in the future and everything. If you guys do want to show up on my podcast, All Music Matters and that, just feel free to message me. Let me know if you want to do it in the comments, fine. On social media, sure. I'm always here for you guys. I'm willing to help you guys out in any way, shape, or form. So, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe. Stay tuned, y'all.